Okay, so I want to go over a pumpkin I did last year, which was based on Lewis from Deliverance. If you know that movie, it was written by James Dickey, a famous American poet from South Carolina. And this is basically my rendition or my attempt at it. Now, there's a lot of improv done in this because if you pay attention, there's not a lot of contrast in certain areas of this, whereas I tried to, I don't know, get the forehead to show through. Some blatant errors that I did make in this, and I don't know why I made that. I think it's because I cut the bow string right there on the forehead. I cut the bowstring thick, and I think I was supposed to thin it out in accordance with that, and I didn't. So another blatant error, which was not particularly of my fault, was this kind of brightening bowing out around the arrow. That was supposed to be a straight line completely through his deltoid. And what basically happened was the pumpkin was starting to age and was actually starting to dry out. And all that sort of turned inward. All the pumpkin flesh started turning inward and creating an opening, essentially, which made it look a lot worse. And there's really nothing I could have done about that at that point. But so essentially what you're seeing here is this is basically skin, the black. The everything here is pumpkin flesh. What you're seeing here when it's very bright is cut through. So that's cut through, this is cut through, and this is just, so when you're looking at this, like the ring, you're just seeing extra indentation. It's, more pumpkins being removed. And you can see the bridge of the nose. That's actually the most shallowest part there. And the eyes I could have done a little sharper and better. Didn't really do those exactly. The hands, where I did a lot of improv on the hands because that stuff was sort of, I was getting tired and it's extremely complicated. And yeah. One big difference between this and some other pumpkins that people are doing, there's two ways to do these types of pumpkins. Now, the first one is the rawest way, which is the way I've been doing them. I just want to see, like kind of like what can you do with a pumpkin? What's the limitations of a pumpkin? So, what some people will do is the black part will basically be a Sharpie. So this would be all Sharpie, the eyes would be Sharpie and everything like that. That would give them extra control over the lines. So this would be the skin, and anything brighter would be just shallower skin. And the problem is you just can't keep, what I do is I turn the light down and some other people turn the light up. And then just for the black, they use a Sharpie and they kind of paint it on. Because if once you turn it up too much, you can basically see that, everything starts to shine through. And also the positioning of the light. If you kind of pay attention, even this skin here is not very dark, right? You compare that skin to that, it's a big difference. It's because most of the light is shining below the face. The light's kind of lower. So a lot of these types of pumpkins require a lot of light trickery to get them. So every time you're cutting it too, you have to sort of figure out where you're cutting in accordance with how the light sits, and then sometimes you make mistakes, and then you adjust the way that where the light is. The biggest thing I'm going to try to do for any pumpkins in the future is try to make less, proportional errors with, cutting of lines and different things like that, and cutting of the skin. I'm going to try to make sure I don't make those errors. The other thing I'm going to try to do is, and this is a big step up, I think, in pumpkin technique in general, and it's extremely hard and time consuming. I don't even know if it's possible because a lot of times pumpkins, when you do them, they want to peel away in shreds. They don't really want to just peel away, or kind of like you're working with clay, where clay just comes apart in the area it comes apart and then you can re-smooth it. Pumpkin likes to sometimes come away in shreds and bigger pieces, so it doesn't matter how fine your technique is, the shred just wants to start peeling the rest of the pumpkin away. So you run into those issues as well. But the one thing I was really hoping to do is to be able to get that kind of graininess, around there, like you would get with skin pores. And you can see more or less up the top here is where I tried to get it, and I was almost successful. When you see these furrows right here, not only the reason why that's darker is because it's taller than the lighter spots around it, but because it's also aged and dried out. So aging and drying out part of your pumpkin and allowing that actually causes a bit of that graininess. But the problem with that is that develops that sort of dryness, that darkness you see up here to the right compared to the left. This stuff is much more rubbery. So when you go to try to, let's say, adjust it again, it wants to start peeling off in more chunks because it's like picking out a piece of rubber. So to get this stuff really grainy as you would a picture, I would love to see somebody try to do it, but right now it's beyond my talent level, and I don't really see what kind of technique I could really incorporate to do it. One thing I thought is experimenting with various sizes of syringes and seeing if you can literally just extract small cylinders of pumpkin as if you're creating skin pores, or you're just creating an extraction of a unit of pumpkin. But I don't really know. That would take forever. But yeah, I think getting the graininess for me is the real next step. Getting that shading in the shadow. I kind of did it good there, up here where I got the cursor. I did it good down by the nose, just above the lip. And I did it really good on the hands. I dedicated a lot of time to doing that, especially up here. I tried to get it to make it look like, the wrist hair, but ultimately it's just exhausting to try to do that. And I don't know if I've seen too many pumpkins where people do that. I've seen some really sharp pumpkins though, where people are putting in the shading, and it's amazing. But overall, I mean, this is so time consuming. I really don't even know how many hours it would take to start really getting the graininess effect in there. It could be a 15 to 20 hour pumpkin at that point, quite possibly. And unless you're extraordinarily fast and good with the technique. But overall, I think a lot of people are approaching their limits of what you can do with a pumpkin. But I'm going to keep trying to push it. So this year I'm going to try to get it a little more realistic.